racism. It was done by me, Steph and Ellie. Alright.
We have a definition of racism which says a belief or doctrine, I don't really know how to say it, that inherit differences among the various human races and it determines cultural or individual achievement, usually involving the idea that one's own race is superior and has the rights of all others.
Alright, another thing we've got is bigotry, which is stubborn and complete intolerance of any creed, belief or opinion that differs from one's own. So a few examples of the racism in inheritance would be the sexism towards women in general. The women don't really seem to work and they depend on their husbands, except Maureen. And prejudice and discrimination. There's also homophobia with William and Kevin as Farley. And Farley says, William says, no, let's pretend that he, Farley, has the capacity to treat his son slightly better than his dogs. So, William...
Why does William feel so angry at his dad, Farley?
Farley really hates the fact that he's a homosexual and...
Yeah, what does he say? Remember, yeah, he says something about, for those people who can't overcome their own weakness. So that homosexuality is some type of illness that you can get better from. It's a choice.
That's something. William feels that he can't bring Kevin to home with him because homosexuals aren't welcome in Rushton. There's also in-family racism towards Nugget.
Sorry to interrupt you, Natasha. There's also other people who can't be brought into Rushton. Who remembers who else can't be brought into Rushton?
I remember when they were talking about, I don't know if
Is it the guy Julia's?
Yeah, Julia's
like
Indian gentleman.
Felix, Felix also has a Japanese girlfriend.
Yeah, and they can't be brought into Rushton, can they?
No.
But I thought they were like, Julia wasn't really open about dating the Indian guy. Because remember, like, when they were driving,
Do you know
was
why
it
she's
Felix
not open
was
about
questioning her about it?
She's pregnant. She's also... What else? She's...
Her family's really not accepting.
Yeah, they wouldn't... She knows that they wouldn't accept it.
Yeah, but she didn't tell Felix, which means that, like, it wasn't like she just didn't bring them. It just wasn't...
Because remember how he's like, oh, Graham, and he's like, oh, is that the short Indian guy from your work? And she says no.
No, she's already on to the next one.
Someone else.
Yeah.
Tall one.
Graham's the
So
tall
maybe
one.
she
So obviously knows who they are.
And maybe she's a bit embarrassed about that
Friendly
she's
with
changed partners as well. Like there's been a hint that there's a few things going on there in Julia's life.
And didn't she say at some point that Hamish, her ex-husband,
Yes.
was a homosexual?
Very good. And that's also it also brings that idea in that, and what does her mum say? But so nice, he planted the lavender bush in my garden and every time it flowers I go, hello Hamish, to the lavender bush. So you've got this idea that it's sort of ignored. Doesn't Julia's mum ignore the fact that her husband is a homosexual, that her daughter's husband?
She seems to
is
kind of
she's
ignore quite a lot of things.
Yeah.
Actually.
Absolutely. Okay, go on, girls.
Alright, so another example is Maureen and Maureen's politics. So Maureen's, in her speech, refers to the Asians, Muslims, and Hottentot, which we looked up to be Africans. Maureen's very racist, a trait that has been passed on to her eldest daughter, Ashley, but Brianna seems to be less racist than her parents.
Yeah. Where does that racism come out in the younger generation of the girls?
When Ashley's talking about, I have a quote here somewhere, but it's up there. There are two examples that are sort of notable.
Racism from inherited her mother's quote. I hate this place. The worst thing is having to be here with that putta.
They're having to live
Referring to William.
And also when she's talking about...
Who said that, Ashley?
Yeah. When she's talking about coons, and then Brianna tells her not to use that word. So there's kind of Ashley's...
Yeah, it's
racist
again
compared
that...
to Brianna as well, so it's just... Yeah. But She's very like Maureen in that sort of.
Was the general racism between Europe rural and urban peoples often highlighted throughout the play?
It's not really racist.
People
What is
from-
it? Is it racism or like
No,
a
that's
discrimination,
Yeah.
or an ongoing sort of simmering hatred that exists between people who live in the city and people who live in the
And
country?
it's sort of like the people in the city, so the people from urban areas are more accepting of people of other races.
Whereas the
And so
country
they get along
seems
with them, but the country people
The
seem
country
really
people-
set in their.
Yeah, like they, you
Sort of.
don't really get.
okay.
Lions is also racist because he cannot deal with it.
Just keep going. Well, we can keep going, and then if you don't like, you can just edit
Was
it.
very rude to him and called him a coon.
Ah,
And there's a whole lot of other words that I didn't really want to put on paper.
yes.
When's sexism in the play?
Yeah.
What other words were used to describe Nugget? What did Lyle say? I said them before. Boom,
Black font.
black cunt, fucking bastard.
Kiss
Yeah,
me,
black
coon.
bastard.
You're dropping all the bombs tonight.
Sorry?
Boy.
I think he called him a bull. Okay, so that language that reflects the violence and hatred of their ideologies. Okay, Bevan, thanks.
What?